Montenegro. The note which the Prince of Montenegro has recently addressed to the European powers is as follows. In the midst of critical circumstances, and in presence of the projects and deliberations emanating from the foreign powers, the Montenegrin people have maintained their calm attitudes without varying the courts of Europe with a description of the painful situation in which they have been placed for ages. For 466 years, the Montenegrin people have refused to submit to any power or to recognize the suzerainty of any lord. On the contrary, they have contended with arms in their hands for independence, and have joyfully shed their blood upon the altar of liberty. For 4 centuries and a half, the Montenegrin people have sustained an incessant struggle with the Turkish Empire, once the most powerful in Europe, and before which all the states of Europe trembled. The blood of her heroes has bedewed every rock on her lofty mountains, and Montenegro has preserved to this day her cherished freedom. This policy of the great powers would be gravely in fault if they failed to take into account the sacrifices which her people have made in behalf of Christianity, that the people who amid the Serbian kingdom, the Byzantine Empire, and the kingdoms of Bulgaria, Bosnia, and Epirus, all of which succumbed beneath the attacks of the Turks, defended themselves proudly amongst their arid mountains, and who knew how to preserve, despite their poverty and privations, the most sacred possession that a nation can possess, its independence. The European powers know but imperfectly, or hardly at all, this people of the mountains. Kings have not concerned themselves about causing the independence of this nation to be recognized, and to enter the family of European states. One of the causes of this indifference, that which was inherent in the hierarchic organization of the government, was lately removed by the restoration of the old system. Receiving neither protection nor support from the Christendom, the Montenegrin people have seen themselves confined to a narrow space, and compelled to combat for reacquisition of their ancient limits. So long as Montenegro shall remain enclosed within her present frontiers, her destiny will be the same as that she has undergone for 5 centuries, that is to say, a constant and sanguinary struggle in order to regain her former possessions. Montenegro does not give up the territory she possessed at a period already too remote, but demands back the soil for which she fought in the most critical times, with the same ardor that she did for her independence. As for their independence, the Montenegrin people do not think it can be called into question. At all times they have had the right to make war or peace with Turkey, and they have frequently made use of this right. At the time of war waged by the Christian nation against Islam, the European government demanded the assistance of Montenegrins, and these always hastened to respond to the appeal, as the history of Austria and the ancient Republic of Venice records. The French and the English only learned to know in part the Montenegrins in the years 1806 through 1814, when, led astray by foreign institutions, these last found themselves placed between 2 fires. At that period, the Montenegrins still possessed Grahovo, Župa, Banjani, Piva, Drobnja, Kruševica, Zubaci, Vasojevici, as far as the rivers of Tara and Lim, and it is those very territories which are to this day the object of all their contests with the Turks. It was at the price of their blood that the Montenegrins conquered the entire coast of Cattaro, which they possessed till 1814, until the day when the Emperor Alexander I invited the Metropolitan and the Montenegrin people to secede the coast of Cattaro to Austria, to whom the Congress of Vienna had just adjudged it. The Montenegrins submitted to the decision of the European powers, withdrew to their mountains, and abandoned the coast to Austria. It was gross injustice, this repelling us entire from the sea and leaving us not one port. Without freedom of commerce, there is for the land and the people of Montenegro neither progress nor internal development, nor any basis fit for the establishment of regular political organization, and suitable relations with neighboring people. The necessity of possessing a free port has long been perceived by the Montenegrins. At the commencement of the 18th century, the Vladika Danilo endowed to restore to the Montenegrine territory the districts of Antivari, an attempt that cost torrents of blood. Relying on the motives I have just explained, I am persuaded that the great powers of Europe will be desirous of protecting the weak against the strong, of guaranteeing the Montenegrins the integrity of their nationality and keeping inviolate their right. The European powers have established that Russia should succeed the Turks the fifth part of Bessarabia, which she conquered 80 years ago at the price of her blood. A fortiori, the powers will be able to require that a certain part of the Ottoman territory be annexed to Montenegro, because the latter country is exposed on the part of Turkey to far more serious danger than Turkey was on the part of Russia. The claims of Montenegro are confined to the following points. The first being diplomatic recognition of her independence. Second, extensions of her frontiers towards the Herzegovina and Albania. Third, definitive settlement of the boundary line towards Turkey, such as it exists for the Austrian frontier. Fourth and last, annexation of the port of Antivari to the Principality. Your Excellency will convince yourself by this statement of the situation and affairs of the nation, and I doubt not your Excellency will take it into consideration and will recommend it to the attention of His Majesty, whose Christian charity and spirit of justice give us the hope of not having made it in vain this appeal to His gracious benevolence. Accept, etc. Danilo Petrovich Njegos, Prince of Montenegro and of Brda. Cetinje, May 1856.